Hello, everybody, and welcome to AMA LTL. My name is Maria Suleiman. I'm going to be your presenter today. Today's webinar is the effect of automation on the workforce. We will get started here in about 5 minutes, but I just wanted to do a tech check to make sure that everybody that's here can hear me and see my screen. So if you can hear me, um, please type yes in the questions box. Actually, I'm going to share my screen now. I didn't share it earlier. Just want to make sure that everybody can hear me and see my screen. Please type yes in the questions box or raise your hand if you can hear me and see my screen. All right, all right. I'm getting a couple of yeses and raised hands. That's great. That's great. I'm glad that everything is working well. Sometimes we have technological challenges, but today everything is all good. Again, welcome to AMA LTL. My name is Maria Suleiman. I'm Managing Director of AMA Consulting, and today's webinar will be discussing the effect of automation on the workforce. We are about 4 minutes away from getting started. Again, welcome to AMA LTL. My name is Maria Suleiman. We will be starting in exactly 3 minutes. If you're just joining us, I will be your presenter today, and today we're going to be discussing the effect of automation on the workforce. This is a very exciting topic, and I am very pleased to be presenting it because I feel like not a lot of people are talking about this, and it's something that is already here. And I know a lot of people like to say automation is coming, but I do want to part of what we're going to discuss today is to let you know that automation is here and it's alive, it's within organizations, it's in the federal agencies already, it's affecting us in business. And so this is a discussion that is long overdue, and it's a discussion that we need to have more of to make sure that everybody's prepared for what's coming. I see a couple of people just joining. If you're just joining the webinar, please raise your hand to let me know that you can see my screen and you can hear me. My name is Maria Suleiman, and I'll be your presenter today. All right, we have a couple more people joining. Thank you and welcome to AMA LTL. My name is Maria Suleiman, and I'm going to be your presenter today. We are going to be discussing the effect of automation on the workforce. I'm going to go ahead and get started as it is exactly 12 o'clock here. If you are new to joining us, AMA LTL is a webinar series that we offer twice a month on a variety of topics that help you improve professionally, gain the competencies that you need to improve professionally to grow into leadership, and also helps you to be successful if you're in business or in any leadership role. As I mentioned, my name is Maria Suleiman. I'm the managing director of AMA Consulting. My bio is here on the screen. I'm not going to read everything, but I just want to highlight a couple of things. I am an organizational development consultant and executive coach by trade. Over the last 16 years, I've worked in academia, worked in government. Actually, I'm a former Fed from the U.S. Small Business Administration and also from FEMA. And then here more recently, in the last 8 years, I started my company, AMA Consulting, and we provide professional services and IT support services to the federal government. So that's my background. Now, what does AMA Consulting do? Just if you're new to us, if you're joining us from federally employed women or Blacks in government, or you're joining us from the SBDCs or any of the business organizations, we offer a ton of training solutions to federal agencies. And so the webinars was actually part of a follow-up, like bite-sized discussions or learning opportunities as a complement to the training services that we offer. And so we do work in these three areas. I'm not going to go into detail, but organizational development, anything within the organization. So strategy development, training, workforce analysis, workforce support, workforce development, leadership development, a second line of business and program support, process improvement, and of course, IT support, specifically assistive technology, doing change management, supporting large modernization efforts, and some cybersecurity. All right, so this, as I was saying earlier, this is a topic that I believe that there is not a lot of discussion around, and there should be more discussion around it. It's just like, 30 years ago, there was no such thing as, like the internet. The internet seemed like something that was so foreign or something so far away. But right now, the internet is central to all that we do. That is the same thing with automation. Automation sounds like something that's so far away. You watch these sci-fi movies and you see robots and you say, oh, that's something that can happen way, way into the future. But the reality is that we are already in the age of automation. We are already in the age of automation, and automation affects us in so many different ways, even in our personal lives. So for example, I remember back in the day, if you needed to drive somewhere, you would have to basically go to MapQuest. First and foremost, you'd have to use a map. And if you didn't know how to read a map and you were lost somewhere, you're in deep trouble because there was no GPS. There was nothing like Google Maps or Waze, So then we moved from that to you could do MapQuest. And you have to print out your MapQuest and like literally take those directions with you. And if you got lost somewhere, well, tough luck, because the MapQuest only gave you like one specific direction. Today we have Google Maps, and Google Maps essentially through technology literally can take you from wherever you are to wherever you want to go. And it's the same thing. Automation and technology has basically fundamentally shifted the way we live. I mean, we are now, if you have Alexa, you have Siri, all of that is artificial intelligence. So now you have Alexa that you can pretty much say, Alexa, turn off the lights. Alexa, play so-and-so music. And that is all a functional application of intelligence. And so automation is here. We are in the age of automation. But before I go into a little bit more practical applications of automation in your specific work environment, I just want us to go through some quick definitions, because again, this is something that is new and you hear these terms being thrown around a lot. And if you're not an IT person or you're not a very techie person, you're like, okay, what does all this mean? All right, so just quick definitions. And again, if you have any questions, please feel free to chime in. You can put your question in the questions box. I do want to hear from you. We have a short time, but I like to be as interactive as possible. So I will periodically go into the questions box and see if there are any questions that I can address. So artificial intelligence is essentially the development of computer systems that can perform human intelligence actions. So it's essentially a computer performing things that we inherently thought only human beings can do. So things like visual perception, speech recognition, decision making, translation between languages, all of those things that we thought that was just a function of our cognitive development as human beings. Now technology is developing computer systems based on logic that can execute those things. A very quick example is what I talked about with if you think about call centers, right? A couple of years ago, a call center will basically be in an actual physical location, and you will have people on phones and have those headsets. You've seen those pictures before, and you have like 50, 100 people in the call center. Right now, the call center industry is 70% um, is 70% executed by robots, essentially. Is 70% executed by artificial intelligence software programs that sound like human beings. I know you've experienced it where you've called, let's say, your telephone carrier or your mobile phone carrier or insurance company or something, and you're like, I want to talk to a human being, and you're talking to these computers. That's exactly what artificial intelligence is. Now they're able to essentially act like human beings. Okay, so that's artificial intelligence. And artificial intelligence is applied in different ways. The two major ways that artificial intelligence is applied is number one, through machine learning. And machine learning is simply using algorithms, I can't speak, to access data. Okay, so you see some uses of this. Like, for example, at the USPS, there are pilot programs now where machine learning will be able to read handwriting on envelopes and basically pick up the addresses of where mail is supposed to go, as opposed to having human beings doing that. Or benefits administration, where a computer program is able to look at the different criteria, right, for benefits application and make a judgment on that. Now, and there are other things like at Oak Ridge Lab where an algorithm used by FEMA basically sets up a robot or that can find man-made structures eaten up by lava flow. So places where human beings were not able to go because of the risks, now machine learning is offering technology and building bots that can go there. So these are some of the uses right now for machine learning. Now, machine learning is more invasive in terms of the robots. A lot of the functions, the robots are performing them by themselves. There's very little human participation in that. So that is the highest risk, if you will, of artificial intelligence, because it's like, okay, a robot is basically doing everything. Now, a less risky application of artificial intelligence is something like robotic process automation. If you work in any office or in any operational or manufacturing or retail, chances are 90% of the work that you do is already being affected by RPA. And I'll explain that a little bit later. But let me just define what RPA is. RPA is essentially using software, which they call bots, to automate rule-based business processes. Okay, so essentially everything that a human being is doing in their job function that has to do with business processes, that is rule-based, that is task-oriented, information assistants or bots, there are different terms for them, essentially can be programmed, okay, to capture data, interpret applications, process a transaction, manipulate data, trigger responses, and communicate with other digital systems and pull data from other digital systems. Now, these are simple applications right now that have been developed. The technology around RPA is moving so fast that by 2020, automation and AI will reduce employee requirements in business shared service centers by 65%. And this is according to Gartner. Just think about retail. Remember when you used to go to the grocery store and you will have a cashier and you'll be able to check out at the cashier? Now it's the same thing. There is a system there that you can just basically scan everything yourself and pay. And now retail is even moving to where you can have the scanner downloaded on your phone, and as you walk through the aisles, you just scan what you want and you don't have to stand in line anymore. So automation is changing everything. But I just thought it is important for us to just define what these things are and what they mean, because how I got into this topic is, we as contractors, one of the services that we offer is process improvement. And, we work with different agency programs to help them map out their processes, re-engineer their processes, and to create efficiencies. And what we're finding is, just as automation is increasing in the corporate sector, now federal agencies are looking for ways to automate some of their business processes to save costs, to reduce the federal workforce, and to eliminate some errors. And I will go into that. So we started to study this and say, oh, okay, so now RPA is a big thing in federal agencies. I can share with you, for example, that at GSA, there is also a pilot program that's going on within your CFO office where they're now using RPA technology to process invoices. So where, for example, the GSA is the government's landlord, and so they have a huge, a very heavy inflow of processes or transactions, if you will, that they have to process financially, because they're the landlord for all of the federal government. And so where they used to be able to process something like 100 transactions a day with their workforce, through RPA, they can do 10,000 transactions a day, just because of the sheer speed and just precision that the bots can use to process those financial transactions. And in this particular study, and if you're interested in learning more about this, I can send you the link where there's a write-up through OOIT and also through FedExec, where and actually there's a continuum of practice where they talk about, there's a white paper about this, about the different transactions that have been automated, what the outcome is, and they're starting to get some data as to the outcome of this RPA implementation at GSA. So there's information about that I can share with you if you're interested, so please let me know. But, so this is where we are with automation. Now, and the rationale for why automation is becoming more common, of course, is the cost savings. But one of the things that we hear the rationale says, okay, we want to free people from doing regular mundane tasks for them to do more high value work. Well, what does that mean? At the end of the day, if you really look at it, it's bottom line. And, even though the government is not a for-profit organization, but the government is also very huge about cost savings now. The government is huge about reducing fraud, waste, and abuse. And so definitely solutions that help government do and perform for the public better, faster, cheaper, those are the solutions that are going to become more prevalent. So if you are in this space, this is something that you need to pay attention, because it's something that's going to affect you directly. Also, as part of Gartner's study, one other thing I wanted to mention, 40% of large enterprises would have adopted an RPA software tool by 2020. And this study was done back in 2018. And I mean, you can just hear the buzz right now. And if you look at trends, you look at the large companies like Accenture, companies like Accenture in particular, and there's another company I can't think of right now because they're the contractor for the GSA pilot. But yeah, they're already in the forefront of this because they all see that enterprise-wide solutions are going to start coming out for federal agencies that incorporate RPA. Now, so what does this all mean? What does this all mean, and what is the gist behind this? The first thing I want us to talk about the differences between robots and human beings, okay? And why this is catching on, why automation is catching on. And I use the word robots, but I want you to imagine a robot can be a software, can be a digital assistant. It can also be like a physical drone, like Amazon is testing the drones, or it could be just a software, something that's that is built. So it may not be like a physical robot in the sense of what you see as a robot moving around, that picture that we have. The bot can be digital. But one thing about bots is, let's just look at the characteristics of a robot versus a human being. Robots have infinite storage capacity. So they have unlimited knowledge, essentially. It used to be that, as a human being, you will extend your career or be successful in your career based on your credentials. You have a PhD, or you have certifications, or you have a master's, or you have like a number of years of experience. But robots can learn in a couple of hours what it took a human being 4 years to learn in their bachelor's degree. So as human beings, we're limited in knowledge. You can be an expert in a particular field, maybe after 20, 30, 15, 10 years of doing that work, a robot, as long as and through the cloud, there's unlimited space. As long as the information is there to be programmed, they can be programmed with anything. So knowledge is now flat. And you can see this even from the fact that we're in an information age and information is free. Google can tell you anything. You put anything in Google, it will spit out the information for you. So knowledge is no longer an edge that we have as human beings. The second thing is that robots speedily execute repetitive tasks. We as human beings, we cannot match robots when it comes to their speed on repetitive tasks. As human beings, you may be working on a task, and as fast as you are on it, as a human being, you just can't match the speed of a robot. The third part is, as long as the programming is correct for the robot and there is no malfunction, whether it be on the information side or a physical robot, robots are pretty much error-free, right? They're not exposed to bias. They don't forget. The robot doesn't forget. Typically, if you punch your computer, as long as there is no defect, your computer is going to come on, and anything that you type in it, any data that you put in is going to spit out the right output for you that has been programmed into. So you see that there's also a benefit, because robots are error-free, while we human beings are prone to mistake. We forget, we make mistakes. That's just part of our humanity. Robots are reduced cost, and this is the thing. Human beings are costly and high maintenance. You have a workforce. Wants to be paid what they feel they're worth. You have a workforce. You have to provide benefits. You have to provide paid time off. You have to abide by laws to make sure that you don't discriminate. All of that costs money. Robots can do the same thing without all those added costs, and they're faster. So you can see where the benefit is to moving towards automation. And you can see, for example, using that analogy of retail, where most grocery stores right now, where it used to be like 8, 10 cashier lines, is just 2 cashier lines, and the other 6 are basically do it yourself through automation. Okay, so one thing I wanted to say, which is very important, and I want you to take this out of here today, is that the jobs that will be automated are the most routine, the most task-focused job with the highest pay. I believe that there's a misconception that, lower level skill job or administrative type jobs are the ones that will be mostly impacted by automation. This is not necessarily true. So, for example, a radiologist that reads scans typically gets paid maybe 120, 130K a year, depending on where they live. If a IT company can build through AI and machine learning software that can basically be programmed, like, if this shows up, this is what this means. If this shows up, this is what this means, and can read that same scan, and it can be error-free, that position has a higher risk from being automated than a position that's maybe just a front desk office person that has more human interaction and requires that human presence. So it's not just about being a lower level job, administrative type job. It's mainly the jobs that have most routine, that are more task focused, that is more logic based or data based. And it's also the highest pay, because remember, there's a cost factor attracted to it. So those are the jobs that will be most affected by automation. I just want to take a second here to go through some of the examples, as I talked about earlier. One other way where you can see where automation has radically shifted the whole industry is the manufacturing industry. You can see where assembly line workers are basically replaced by robots. I think people keep saying, the manufacturing industry was crippled because a lot of jobs moved to China, but the reality is technology and automation is primarily responsible for a lot of those manufacturing jobs being gone. Think about even the way cars are built right now. Cars are basically almost like computers. So what does that do? That also eliminates a lot of the jobs that were available to mechanics to repair spark plugs. A lot of new cars today don't have spark plugs. Everything is digitized in the cars. So there's so many things that you have to be aware of that automation is affecting is not just about the administrative or the lower level jobs. It is the jobs that are most routine with the highest pay. Okay, now what do we do? Now this is coming. What do we do? How do we address this? How do we even approach this? One thing that we all need to be aware of is that there's something that makes us unique as human beings. There's something that we have that the robots don't have, right? And there are three primary things. One of them is wisdom. And these are going to seem very elementary. They're going to seem like, oh, what is this? But this is the reality. Wisdom is the proper application of knowledge. Wisdom combines logic and emotion. Okay. So this is one of the distinction. A robot cannot have wisdom because robots don't have emotion. That is something that's, unique to us as human beings. So wisdom is one of the things that makes us unique. What do I mean by that? In our decision-making process, there are some times where we just rely strictly on data and on logic, and there are other times where we're more nuanced in our decision-making process. So we look at the data, we do the logic, but we also rely on our insight, right? Based on our human emotion, we rely on, does this sound right? How does this feel? How's this going to impact other people? That component is something that makes us different from robots, and that wisdom is superior to artificial intelligence. Why? Because artificial intelligence is rule-based, it's only logic, so there is no room for anything else. The robot or the application system will only spit out what it has been programmed to. There's no other source for it to draw from, right? Like emotion. The second part is empathy. That is something that makes us unique. I attended a workshop with ACT-IAC. ACT-IAC is essentially an industry organization that partners with IT specialty companies from industry and also IT professionals in government to solve some of the largest problems in government. They look at different projects from 5G to cyber to the workforce to management and modernization systems, all types of things. But there was a CIO that spoke, and he said, one of his entire model for building systems throughout his entire enterprise is based on empathy. And we're starting to see why empathy is so important. And this is one of the biggest things that makes us unique. It is the core of the best part of our humanity. Robots do not have empathy. And empathy is basically the ability to see. Is the ability to see into another human being. Is the ability to not just see, but understand. And empathy brings connection. Empathy brings relationship. Empathy brings a knowing beyond what is seen with the eye. And so empathy is something that makes us unique, something that we have that the robots don't have. And the third one, which I believe is the most important one, is the ability to develop something that doesn't exist. So all living things reproduce, but human beings are the only living things that don't just reproduce, but have the ability to create beyond their own kind. So everything that we're talking about today, automation, was created by human beings. It was created by researchers, created by IT folks who are developing this technology. So when we talk about things like the internet, things like planes, all of that was developed by human beings. These are all things that did not exist. So our ability to create is something that is unique to us, and is something that a robot cannot do. A robot cannot develop or produce anything outside of what it was programmed to. So a robot cannot create something new. It can only perform what it has been programmed to perform. A robot is good for task execution. Human beings create. Human beings solve problems. And I think it's really important for us to be aware of this as we move into the automation age, and even as automation comes into your organization. And you're sitting and saying, well, will my job be affected by automation? What am I going to do? What does that look like for my future? And how am I going to be able to reinvent myself? This discussion is something that you should have, knowing what you have as a human being that a robot doesn't have. Now, knowing that we have wisdom, we have empathy, and we are creative. We can create something that has never existed before. We can solve problems and create a demand that doesn't currently exist. How do we use this to thrive in the age of automation? You know, how do we use this to create the jobs of the future? How do we use this to create opportunities for ourselves in the future as automation is basically coming and, if you will, taking over? You know, how do we do this? So, couple of points I have, and this is my final slide on content. So if you have questions, please feel free to type it out now, and I'll have a few minutes to respond to them. Is the first thing is you have to be aware of what's going on. So be aware of how automation is being adopted in your organization and in your daily life. You know, some of you are in agencies or you are in an industry where you are launching a business concept or you're launching an idea, and your idea may be great, but there may be technological changes through automation, AI, machine learning, that's basically going to make that your idea obsolete or may impact your business idea. So you need to start being aware. You need to start doing some research. You need to start being open-minded and really learning about how automation is going to impact your organization, impact your industry, and potentially impact your job and your livelihood. So I always share with people, don't run away from it. Like, lean in and find out what's going on. Some of you in your organization, automation is already being adopted in so many areas that you are not aware of. The last thing you want to do is to find out, you know, that your job is going to be impacted by automation and you're not prepared for it. Okay, so be open to it, and that's what we've done at AMA, because you know we've been, you know, helping agencies with process reengineering, and we have our, you know, black belts, Lean Six Sigma, and all of that, doing change management. But we're noticing this shift towards automation, and we're like, oh, okay, so let's learn more about it. And then it starts to say, okay, well, how is this going to impact the workforce? And so what it's done is it's created an opportunity for us to talk about that and prepare agencies for how automation is going to impact their workforce and what kind of training the workforce is going to need to be able to move into the jobs of the future, to be able to move into doing more high value work. So here, what are the things that you need to do, and what competencies do you need to develop? So number one, as I mentioned, be aware, be open, seek out information, research, know how automation is impacting your organization and your daily life. Second thing is develop your human touch. Those three things that we talked about that robots can't do, which is wisdom, which is creativity and empathy. Develop those. And when I say develop those, is how do you hone those skills to apply and create something or create an opportunity, even maybe something existing within your organization. One of the things I say to the workforce is, if some of the tasks that you routinely do is going to be taken over by automation or by a bot, what are some of the things that you've always wanted to do? What is some of your vision or some great ideas that you've always wanted to do, but you just didn't have the time? What are some of the creative things? What are some of the problems that you wanted to solve? What are some of the solutions that you wanted to deliver that you never had time to do because you were so busy focusing on executing tasks just to get things going? Okay, so that is the human touch piece. Okay, is directing your outward actions with your internal sense of purpose. That internal sense of purpose is, okay, what are the things that I really feel like, okay, this is what I have the competency to do, I have the desire to do, I have the passion for, I see this as a benefit to the people that I serve, but I really have not been able to do it because I've been so focused on executing tasks. So if the bots are going to take over that, then you have to now refine your human touch to direct your action towards those things. Okay, so how do you specifically develop your human touch? Really quickly, develop empathy. That's a big one. A big way to develop empathy is by serving. Look for opportunities for you to serve in other capacities, just beyond what your daily function is. Look for opportunities to learn from others. Seek to understand. Look for opportunities to connect. One of so the theme for 2020 for us is soaring to greater heights. Our leadership conference was just last year, and that was the theme. And one of the things that I'm saying is that collaborations will be the way for you to soar in 2020 as a new decade. And this is where human beings, this is where we're different, because we have that ability to connect. Robots can't connect. And that connection births about something greater than something that you'll be able to do on your own. So this empathy piece is really important. So serve, understand, form collaborative partnerships, connect. because we can testify to that even as a business. And for the business owners who are on the webinar today, collaborations are the greatest way for you to really grow your business. The going it alone mentality, there's just only so far that you can go on your own. So collaboration is a big key, connecting, partnerships, collaboration. That all comes from developing empathy. The second part is always think about solving problems, not just doing the daily tasks. Because automation can pretty much, the way technology is doing, any routine, rule-based task can be replaced by automation. And I just want you to know, no, nothing is safe. Any routine rule-based task can be replaced by automation. As human beings, we need to go to that next level of solving problems. So how do you solve problems? By integrating data, things, and people. It can't just be a data logic based. If you're just logic based and all you're doing is just based on data, even analysis can be replaced by automation. So solving problems, thinking again about, okay, what are some of the core things, right, that solutions don't exist for? Okay, just like what we're talking about in terms of internet didn't exist, planes didn't exist, but somebody's figured out, okay, there must be a faster way to travel from one continent to another. Instead of going by ship and taking 3 to 6 months, there must be a faster way. And that was the Wright brothers. And that's how we have airplanes. So that's how we have to start to think. And that leads me to my last point. Think like an entrepreneur. What do entrepreneurs do? They take an idea and a concept and basically create a demand around it. They solve a problem and they create a demand around it. That's how you have to think. Challenge yourself to think creatively. The age of automation will be favorable to the people who can think creatively and produce an output that people will be able to consume. Okay, it requires a shift from, oh, I'm just doing my job, to, oh, I'm going to develop something and create a demand that people will consume. And that's basically what entrepreneurship means. Now, that's not necessarily saying everybody has to run out there and start their business. It's just a business acumen. It's an entrepreneurship mindset. It's the mindset shift that needs to take place. So with that being said, that brings me to the end of my content. And I would like to hear from you now. If you have any questions, really quickly, I want to just put on our contact information. If you want to send me an email, you need more information about this, info@ama-consult.com. You can like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, or connect with me on LinkedIn. So we are going to be doing more topics around this. And actually, I'm going to be speaking at the FEW conference in the summer of next year on more broadly on this topic. This is something that's so new and not a lot of people are talking about, but it's going to impact a lot of jobs, especially in the federal. So for example, if you do benefits claim, if you process applications, any type of application, whether it's at FDA, you're processing application for your device or for devices or drugs to be approved. All of those things are task-based and rule-based. All of those things can be impacted by automation. If you work at USPTO and you process applications for trademarks and stuff, all of those things can be impacted by automation. So just stay connected with us to learn more about this topic. That's all I'm going to say. All right. Any questions? I want to hear from you. If you have any questions, please put your questions in the question box or comments or feedback. What did you think about the content? I do want to hear. I see a couple of people. I do want to hear from you. All right, so somebody says, how do you know if automation is already being, if automation is already, so you find out, right? So agencies are constantly revamping how they do business. And remember, these technology companies, that have the technology for automation, they're constantly pitching and selling to agencies to say, hey, we can help you do your work in invoicing better. We can help you with your, excuse me, your benefits claims process better. We can help you do this. So stay aware, especially when changes are coming down the pike. Be aware of those changes and what the change is, and if automation is a part of that. So that's what I would say, is be aware of the changes. Any other questions? All right, thank you. You're welcome. Thank you, Terry. Somebody just said great presentation. Uh, Thank you. Thank you. All right. Terry said great presentation. All right. So looks like we don't have any more questions. I'm going to go ahead and end the webinar. Thank you so much for joining us today. And we look forward to connecting with you again on other AMA LTLs on a variety of topics. We are going to be releasing our 2020 first quarter topics. We have some exciting topics coming up in January, February, March, and we look forward to connecting with you then. Take care.